Hello, everyone. My name is Erica, and my presentation will focus on employment opportunities for adults on the autism spectrum. So, current research indicates that adults with autism have difficulty finding employment, keeping employment, and working regular hours in comparison to the average individual. One study by Burke et al. Found that only 2% of people with Asperger's and autism are employed. This is a disturbingly low number of individuals considering that the prevalence of autism is increasing over the years. Another study by Strickland, Southern, and Coles found that 90% of job loss with this population is due to deficits in social communication. So the fact that these individuals are underemployed is an important issue to address for many reasons. So firstly, adults with autism who are not employed have a poorer quality of life compared to those who work. This was demonstrated in an article by Eves and Ho, and their research focused on the kinds of lives that adults with autism have. And they were interested in this domain because it's often overlooked. A lot of the research focuses on individuals who are under the age of 18, which, when I think about it, is kind of odd because it means that most of their lifespan is essentially completely ignored. And so Eves and Ho found that the higher the functioning the individual was, the more their quality of life was negatively impacted. And they think that a very possible reason for this is because the more the individual is aware of their isolation due to a lack of employment, the more it would affect their quality of life. As well, part of quality of life is independence. And 60% of the participants in the study were living in a group home or in the family home with a disability pension. So this leads us to the next topic of why this issue is important, which is our taxes. So Hong et al. Found that on average, each individual on the spectrum costs about $3 million in government funds across the lifespan. So if you think about it, if they were to get jobs, then they wouldn't be costing this money, or the funds that they would likely be reduced in how much funds they need. So one of society's attempted solutions regarding the lack of employment opportunities is sheltered workshops, which are basically places that are specifically made for individuals who have disabilities. And they're segregated settings. But as I read more about it, I realized that this isn't necessarily the best solution because the workshops cost a lot more money to run and than a support program would in a regular workplace. And this was demonstrated through research by Samara et al., and who found that sheltered workshops also pay significantly less than a regular workplace employment setting. And it leads to a lack of choice, which removes the opportunity for competitive employment and a genuine enjoyment of the work. Because in a sheltered workshop, the options for what kinds of work are available is very limited. So in their study, Samara et al. Found that sheltered workshops actually removed some of the individual's ability to compete for jobs in the regular employment market. And what they found is that behaviors that were taught and learned in these workshops were only useful in those particular settings. And in fact, they tended to become points of inappropriate behavior in regular work settings. And it gave them basically an extra task to unlearn these newly learned behaviors. The researchers also found that the workshops had a negative value added when it comes to the value that's given back to the society, which basically means that for all the effort, time, and money put into these workshops, there was not return. The return was not significant enough because individuals with ASD were not better equipped to obtain and maintain employment. This leads me personally to believe that sheltered workshops should either be abolished or they should be significantly refined because it's not the best solution to increasing employment opportunities for individuals with ASD. And another issue that was raised in other research is the need for support within the workplace, which is also, so this is a different solution, which is called supported employment. So a national survey conducted in Australia by Baldwin, Costley, and Warren, it consisted of a sample of 130 adults with Asperger's disorder or high-functioning autism, and they found that 72% of these individuals were not receiving any kind of support in the workplace. And on top of that, in the survey, they found that these individuals reported that they would actually like to be receiving support that they weren't receiving. And the researchers explained that a support program would have a great positive effect on job performance, which is not only important for employers, but it's also important for employees because it affects how their coworkers view them. And they can be viewed by other employees and employers, for that matter, as being competent or incompetent, which is important because, for example, if the employer views them as being competent, then they're more likely to be given raises, letters of recommendation, and promotions. So, and as well, just in general, and this is for people on the spectrum and even neurotypically developing people, just an overall acknowledgement of a person's abilities is another reason why these individuals should receive support in the workplace. So now we'll go into approaches for addressing this challenge. So this one I actually found to be super interesting. It's called the, first I'll introduce the researcher. So this was a study conducted by Gal et al. In 2015, and it's based in Israel. It's called the Roim Rachoch program, I think. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But anyway, so the program is based in a military setting in Israel, and it's created specifically to foster work-related skills that individuals can use both in a military setting and in other workplace environments. The program focused on fostering 4 types of skills, which were aerial photography interpretation, software quality assurance, information processing, and optics technicians, which is basically repairing binoculars and other kinds of equipment for the Army. So in the program, the participants trained for a 3-month period with different specialists while they also integrated into the job site with their specific team. After the 3-month training period, they worked independently at the job site alongside neurotypically developing peers. And some of the reasons why this kind of approach is a great way to help resolve the issue of the lack of employment opportunity for adults on the spectrum is that it develops new skills that are useful in various workplace environments. For example, the program worked on developing job-related social skills, such as addressing officers of different rankings, which can be transferred into a regular workplace. For example, you might address a teacher differently than you would address the principal of the school, or something like that. So it can transfer nicely. So when I was doing this research, the Roim Rachoch program made me think about this, and I invite you to think about it too, but this is not the forum question, so those are at the end. But do you think that it would be beneficial to work with teens with ASD while they are in high school and teach them specific skills that are related to employment? If so, which skills would you focus on, and why? Moving on. Okay, so now we'll talk about small adjustments that can be made in the workplace, which is basically supported employment. So some of the adjustments include, as demonstrated by Baldwin, Costley, and Warren. So offering flexible hours, arranging special lighting, tailored supervision strategies such as regular daily check-ins, and leniency such as providing leniency when the person is having a bad day, and allowing them to, exempting them from customer-facing tasks. So the reason why I wanted to discuss these small adjustments is to point out that they're small, they're not big, they can be implemented easily, and even though they're small, they make a big difference to the person on the spectrum in the workplace and it helps them be successful. So another area to look at in terms of approaches for addressing the challenge is with technology-based assistance. And as we all know, we use technology a lot. And what was I saying? So yeah, we use technology a lot, and it's another approach for addressing the challenge. And since we have it surrounding us all the time, at home, on the streets, in the workplace. So why not make use of the technology that's readily available and come up with an innovative way to address the issue of employment opportunity? So there are 2 specific articles that have researched ways in which technology can be used to help individuals on the spectrum with specified job skills. Hong et al. Conducted a meta-analysis of all of the single case studies involving video modeling to decide whether it was an effective method of training employees. So they found it to be moderately effective in teaching job skills to individuals on the autism spectrum. So another way that technology can be beneficial is by using a personal queuing system, which within the workplace. This was demonstrated by Burke et al. In 2010, and they basically conducted a study which used a personal queuing system that made it possible with a personal digital device, such as a phone, an iPad, or a tablet. They found that the combination of behavioral skills training, which is BST, with the use of a personal queuing system for people with ASD allowed them to learn much longer sequences of tasks, and it lessened their need to seek assistance from others. They were also able to complete the sequences correctly with fewer errors and faster than with BST alone. So BST is a method of training individuals to complete sequences of work tasks through means of modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. In order for the personal queuing system to be effective, participants need to be trained in the skills before they can be queued to complete them. So in other words, you can't just hand a person a device and say, use it to complete work tasks, or even if the task is set up. They need to be taught the task, and then the personal digital device can serve as a cue that is useful to the individual. And I also want to just quickly point out that this is great because there's not much stigma attached. Technology is widely used and accepted. So now we will talk about some of the useful resources. So we have some useful resources in Canada available to those who need help seeking and keeping employment, although there's still a lot of improvement that can be made. So one program is the Ready, Willing, and Able program, which began in 2015. And it's a program that is Canada-wide, and it's currently working with 20 different communities. So their take on inclusion is more geared towards what individuals with ASD can do for the labor market and how these untapped resources could benefit both the individual and the employer/businesses. So they basically build a bridge between employers and employees by raising awareness and changing the often inaccurate perspectives of employers. And they at the same time, they provide specific help to individuals with ASD at the job site. This program essentially creates an environment of equity rather than equality. Equality means everybody gets the same thing, the same resources, regardless of any factors which would make them need something different. Whereas equity means that everyone gets what they need, and it recognizes that some individuals need more support than others when it comes to the domain of employment. So another Canadian program, which is based out of Vancouver, is the BC Centre for Employment Excellence. So this program, it's not specific to people with disabilities or with ASD, but it conducts research regarding employment, and they have conducted research specifically on people with ASD and employment, and they created a very descriptive webinar providing recent research on best practices associated with employment for these individuals. And the reason I included it is because the first thing that any good program should do is look at evidence and base their program off of things that are strategies that are evidence-based. So in other words, things that have been shown to work. And so the reason for that is because it provides a base of knowledge of the types of things that need to be done to increase employment opportunities among this population. I provided the link to the webinar, and for those of you who are interested and would like more information on the topic, I would highly recommend taking a look at it. So another resource that's useful, and the reason I included this one is because, well, first of all, it is located in Vancouver, and it actually uses evidence-based approaches to guide their methodology. And it's called the PALS Adult Program, which is all-encompassing, and the purpose is to meet the needs of individuals with a wide range of needs and abilities. So just as autism is a spectrum, as we all know, the program attempts to have a range of programs to accommodate all individuals within it. So for the purposes of this presentation, I will focus on the adult program because they also have programs for individuals ages 5 to 18, but I will focus on the program which caters to individuals who are of ages 19 to 29. And they have different goals based on the individual's needs. So, for example, they have programs that teach things like basic living skills, getting dressed, doing groceries, taking public transportation, and various other skills to live independently. In all of their programs, they teach social skills, which is, as we said at the beginning, 90% of job loss is due to deficits in social communication. So therefore, these are important skills for all individuals on the spectrum. And PALS also offers employment to those who are lower functioning by creating a social enterprise that involves making scented candles. Another way PALS provides support is by placing individuals within particular volunteer opportunities to gain the necessary skills to eventually have paid employment, which has strong evidence in the research according to Wayman, and I'm sure that there's much other research in support of that. So another useful resource is the Spectrum Careers, and it's the last resource that I want to discuss today. It's based out of the United States, and it started in 2014. Although this resource is not yet provided in Canada, it's useful to evaluate all available programs globally to see what works and to know what others have done in order to create programs locally based on this information. So they have a video which explains really, really well how the program works. So I provided the link. I would have explained it myself, but I can't do it better than they can in 1 minute and 32 seconds. So here you go. Here's the link, and I recommend watching it. So now I'll go over just the summary of my presentation. So despite the availability of employment opportunity programs for individuals with ASD, there's still much room for improvement. In the article by Baldwin et al., they conducted a large-scale study on individuals with high-functioning autism, and they found that 41% of the participants in a sample of 130 people did not receive any assistance when searching for employment. So my presentation highlights the best practices that have proven effective based on research studies, as well as some of the currently available programs that have proven effective for creating an inclusive workplace environment. I have also discussed some of the things that did not work so well and should be abolished and refined, such as sheltered employment. So now it's just my references. Okay, so now we're going on to the class discussion, which these are for the forum. So today, adults with ASD have limited employment opportunities, especially meaningful employment. In your opinion, what is meaningful work important? Why, as opposed to simply being employed? So another question is, employers need to see the benefits of hiring individuals with ASD. They may view the necessary adaptations as time-consuming or costly for the business. This begs the question, who should pay for the initial cost? In your opinion, should it be covered by the government, the family, or the employers? So question number 3, in your opinion, since BST is an expensive approach for employers, do you think that it should be offered in high schools? If not, what other solutions can you think of? So the final question is, the first website is a useful resource program called Ready, Willing, and Able, which seems to be all-encompassing. Looking at the website, can any of you make a suggestion on how the program could be improved? Thank you.